Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Hatecast. And today I'm joined by the lovely Dan. Hello, Dan. How are you?
I'm gorgeous, thank you very much. I thought I'd make a bit of an effort and actually, well, I can't remember the last time I put a tie on. It may be in the order of years at this point. So it took a couple of attempts to try and get the knot right, and I'm just slightly strangling myself. But
you look very smart, and the magistrate will definitely clear you, don't worry. So, Dan, before we get into the question, I'm sure everyone out there knows the format I'll ask you a series of questions, and you'll give me some answers, hopefully. It works best that way. But if anyone were to come to Hate Club and see you there, who the devil are you? What do you get up to at the club? What do you do? What do you like?
So I'm one of the cheerful, bouncy ones that loves going around talking to absolutely everybody. So I will always start arriving at Hate by going round and round talking to people. I'm also the one that built the lighting system that goes over the tables, so I'm normally telling someone off for doing it wrong at the beginning when they were hanging them up in the wrong way.
If you have any questions about the lighting, come talk to Dan and then he'll walk you through.
And then playing light, friendly beer and pretzels type games, and at the end of every battle round I'll be then wandering around seeing what everyone else's games are, looking at their models, chatting to them, going over to the game of beer people and having a saying hello. I'm a very, very social person.
Lovely.
I'm there for the social side of it rather than
taking names and kicking butt.
Other than the hard gaming. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. If you've been to Hate, you probably like. Of course, I know Dan. He's always wandering around and you mean. So, what are you normally playing? I think I've seen you playing 40k and Age of Sigmar.
So 40k is effectively my main game, and that's more it's less because I love the game and more because it's the game most likely to make me new friends. So I play the game that is most popular in the club and in other clubs, where I can make a new friend and throw dice at them and have a whale of a time.
Well, you might have to start learning Infinity, Dan, because it seems like Infinity's taking the club over at the moment, isn't it?
It does, and I'm sure we'll get onto Infinity later, but it's a lot of the newcomers that come to the club will be 40k people primarily because they've come from playing in stores and playing at schools. Yeah. So it's still the dominant entry game for tabletop.
It was the first. I mean, I played Warhammer Fantasy Battle and I played 40k to begin with. But I played for years and years. The only game I really played was 40k, and that, like you said, because so many people play it, it's an easy game to pick up. It's an easy game to find opponents for. And I think I was saying in the last, I was talking to Monk. It's really important that maybe it was JB. I'm telling everyone. I was just telling everyone. Yeah. If you want to start a new game, you need an opponent to play against.
Absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, 40k is my main one, and then I'm a big fan of Gaslands, which is the tabletop car racing game that you use actual Hot Wheels cars. Yep. Again, because it's a really easy entry level game. I've run games at Hate, and someone has wandered in and go, "Oh, I'm here for the first time," and I've just grabbed them by the collar, shoved a couple of cars in their hands, and they've ended up having a whale of a time playing this ridiculously simple and ridiculously fun game.
The Gaslands looks really. I've actually picked up that I was at Poundland and they had the Warthogs from Halo for a pound. I bought 4 of them. I thought if I buy 4 of those, I can respray them, and then if I want to play Gaslands, it's one. Someone said it's the only game where the army costs you less than the templates.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the entry cost for the game for rulebook, templates, dice, and models is around £35-40.
Yeah.
And every Gaslands player I know has got their whole army in a shoebox, which has got probably 4 or 5 crews in it. So you can literally say, "You 4 people over there, come and play right now." Nothing else involved. It's such an easy, such an accessible game. So,
yeah. Absolutely. Because you just need a few cars to play and a bit of scenery, and you're off. And it's
literally toy cars from your kid's toolbox, and it's ready to go. The other thing I like about the other thing that got me into Gaslands is I'd managed to get into some real hobby paralysis, which I'll come to later. And I wanted a game that I could just pick up and play. So I pledged myself not to do any modelling and painting on my Gaslands cars. All of them are exactly as they came from the charity shop or Poundland or whatever, because I wanted to give myself a game that I didn't feel obliged to put a lot of work into before I could start throwing dice.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Good. So, after that, after talking to you, I better ask you the first question.
Yeah, I'm breaking the system already, aren't I? Yep.
There is no system. This is hate. Dan, what's on the workbench? You might be saying nothing at the moment. By the sounds of it.
No, I've like most of us. I had a big collection of stuff that needed attending, whether it was Andy's massive piles or Neil's attic or all that sort of thing. And it hasn't it paid off for us. We've had 12 or 13 weeks with no access to a gaming shop, and yet we've still had lots of stuff to do.
Yes,
and I've had the privilege and the time and the opportunity to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. So what are you currently working on? Is anything? I remember
this is my highly complicated spreadsheet. A piece of paper, lots of crossings. Look at all those crossings out. That's all success. That is. So over the past 12 weeks, I've finished and boxed up all my Adeptus Titanicus.
Yep.
I've finished and boxed up my Malifaux, my X-Wing, and I'm now starting to go through all of my Council's Dark Eldar army and my Primaris Marines, finishing off all the little things that I never got round to at the time, and it's great fun. I visited Salute virtually, spent the whole morning going through all 100 websites of the people that would have been exhibiting, and spent just over £100, as I was planning to if I'd been going. So I finally got round to buying Badgers and Burrows, the rule book, which is the anthropomorphic game, and I actually bought a set of 10 models from a different manufacturer called Northumbrian Tin Soldier that are a Wind in the Willows set. So I finished the good guys, Mole, Ratty, Badger, Mr. Toad, that sort of thing, and the 5 weasels are currently on my workbench, so I'm working my way through them.
No, I've seen the they look really nice, the ones you've done already. They look really good.
Yeah. And then the thing that's just suddenly popped to the very top of my workbench at the moment is I've got a friend's birthday party coming up in July, so I'm making a miniature of her. And so I've managed to find there's a Reaper miniature of a sort of steampunk lady who's got her build and wears the sort of clothes she wears when she's dressing up. And so I undercoated her last night, and over the next week or so I will try and do as good a job I can of making a miniature of her. She's not a gamer in the slightest. This will be a mantelpiece thing. So.
Oh, that's very nice of you. Yeah, I found this lockdown as, I mean, I paint quite a lot of models anyway, but just the lockdown just I paint so much stuff. It's good to get this that I never thought I would get round to. Yeah. You might as well post up some pictures of my epic. I tried to do word bearers because worse,
well, you can see the little words are written on their number on their shoulder pads, can't you? So
absolutely, I've got a microscope and
a pen. Yeah,
the word is ah. So, Dan, what are you reading at the moment? Are you a prolific reader? Have you got anything on the bench?
Horrific confession to make. I don't. I was a voracious reader when I was a young teenager, but way ahead of my reading age in primary school. And then in secondary school, I discovered electronics. And spent my whole secondary school reading the Maplin catalogue and copies of Everyday Electronics and Electronics Monthly, and so stopped reading to the extent that when I went to university, in my third year, I had a girlfriend who was studying English, and she put a book in my hand and tried to get me to read it. And within seconds, I'd skimmed the first 3 or 4 pages, as an engineer at university does when you've got massive texts to go through. And she said, no, read it. And it took me 3/4 of an hour to read the first page because I couldn't not skim read. I had to almost say it out loud. So she got me back into reading. And then over the next decade or so in my 20s, I was a voracious reader of sort of cutting edge new fiction, all the sort of stuff under the Picador publishing house and all of your Martin Amoses and your Umberto Ecos. I was reading all of those as they hit print. And then I got married and had a child, and I've barely picked up a book since. gaming is partly to the fault of that, because reading rule books and codexes and that sort of thing. To be honest, these days, if I want to engage my brain, I'll do something creative, and if I don't want to engage my brain, I sit and stare at the telly watching junk science fiction, and I don't sort of have anything in between. I've proofread a couple of books for friends of mine over the last year or two, which was great fun because it means I get to talk in the middle of a book. I'm a big fan of my own voice, and that's usually a large part of the. So that was fun. But other than that, I'm afraid I am shockingly poorly read.
Do you listen to maybe audiobooks or podcasts ever?
No, I find that I fall asleep too quickly to spoken word. Every night I go to sleep listening to Radio 4 comedy, and every so often, if I get insomnia, I'll put an episode on and I can quote verbatim the first 5 minutes of it. And by halfway through it, I'm laughing at jokes I've never heard before, despite the fact I've probably heard them 100 times in my sleep. So no, audiobooks just don't work for me.
Yeah, no, I don't. It's not the same. The pictures aren't as good in.
It does take 1,000 words, of course. For
read the book. Something happens, my brain switches to a different part, and then I'm reading it, but I'm seeing it.
Yeah.
Or if I'm listening to an audiobook, I'm just listening, and it does the same visuals. I don't know. If you're an expert in brains, maybe you can comment below on why I don't.
Please do. Neurolinguistic programming, Tony Bazan, all that sort of thing. Yeah.
Let me know below. That's fine. That's fine. You know, I mean, I have a child myself, 6-year-old William. He's and you know, I find it really hard to find the time to read a book. I try and read every now and then. So just do what you can. And
yeah, the exception to this is occasionally my work takes me into near Europe for a week of building lighting rigs or exhibition stands and so on. And so I take a Kindle, and that Kindle sits in the pocket of my combat trousers, and I will zoom through several novels in a row. I did most of Game of Thrones in the space of 2 or 3 6-week jobs.
Yeah.
And I did a whole bunch of Terry Pratchett's. I revisited a load of the old Michael Crichton stuff. Again, fairly sort of light reading, nothing particularly dramatic. I mean, as I say, in my 20s, I was consuming Dostoevsky's and Kafka's and absolutely loving them. And now the prospect of that much, I mean, I'd pull me back even thinking about it, I think, to be honest.
Right, next question, Dan. Here's a big one for you. What does gaming mean to you?
99.99% getting into a room with friends, possibly new ones, and feeling the adrenaline and the endorphins and the laughter flowing.
Yeah.
I'm a very lightweight, fluffy gamer. I love playing to have fun. If the game is getting serious and dramatic, I know I'm a very poor loser, and I don't actually get that much reward from winning. So the games that are fun throughout and come down to a final dice roll where if there's another turn, they win, and if there isn't another turn, I've won. That's my favourite sort of game, because
absolutely.
In theory, it means that both of you have had fun throughout the game.
Yeah, if it comes down, I've so many games. You know, you've laughed the whole way through. You've had so much fun playing together, and then it's just literally comes down to one dice roll. There's no hard feeling. I would much rather that than just roll across them. Turn one, half your army's gone. Turn 12, one. Like who is that fun for? It's not challenged you to think of, and they certainly haven't had any fun just packing their models away.
No. It's one of the things I loved about when the Maelstrom missions came in 40k. That made a huge difference, because you can carry on scoring points even when your army is almost decimated, in a way that with the classic missions, you don't stand a chance of winning. So it keeps the game going. It's also something I like about playing Dark Eldar, because the big mechanic in Dark Eldar is they get stronger as the game progresses because of their fluff and their rules and so on. So even when my army seems significantly diminished, it's still achieving things, which means that the game usually goes the full length. I hardly ever get tabled unless it's horrific gunline stuff that I just can't deal with.
We all get tambled. We all get tambled. We all get tambled. Ooh, that's something else. That's a different podcast. We all get tabled sometimes, you know?
Yeah.
And that can be no fault of your own. I've had games where I remember hi James, my friend James. I was playing my Dark Angels against his Eldar, and I had this one Terminator that couldn't stop rolling. Every time it was an AP behind, I kept rolling 5s and 6s for invulnerable saves.
Mm-hmm.
I'd roll a 2 or a 3, and it just this one guy just whole turn of shooting. He survived, and then obviously I just wiped him out.
Yeah.
And then equally drove a Land Raider. First turn hits a sandbag, immobilized.
Yeah. Well, we always have good days and bad days and so on. But as I say, I think because of the way that I approach my gaming, I seem to be quite well known at Hate now for being good with newcomers.
Yeah.
So quite often when someone posts on the Hate group or even the challenge board and said, "Hi, I'm new. I'd like to learn 40k. Can someone teach me?" Quite a few other people will actually say, "Oh, Dan's up for that sort of stuff," because I love doing teaching games. I got into 40k when my son was 9, and I never played it when I was young. And we got invited to a games workshop, got a teaching game. I bought a Necron starter set for him and a Space Marines for me. And over the next 5 years, I didn't get to play a single game against an adult, but I taught about a dozen 9, 10, 11, 12-year-olds how to play. And I used to supervise apocalypse games. I used to take, in the school holidays, I'd take all these kids to my nightclub and set up a whole load of risers and build a massive apocalypse games with the smoke machines going and pyrotechnics at the end of the phases and that sort of thing. And yeah, that to me is what gaming is all about. It's just ridiculous escapism and fun.
I think yeah, if there's enough things in the world to take seriously, we don't have to get something else that's just.
Yeah, I mean, I have the greatest respect for people that do use it to test their technical acumen or to improve their painting and that sort of thing. But to me, it's meeples and having fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely fine if you've got an opponent and you say to them before the game starts, "Okay, we're going to both go off and we're both going to make the most horrendous list, and we're going to really test ourselves." That's fine if both people know that before they start, because that gives the other person a chance to go, "Actually, that's not my thing. You go play to that. I'm not into that. I'm going to go and get another game. You find someone that wants to do that." It's expected, isn't it, before the game starts.
I think that's why the Hate challenge board is so good, because you can post up. So and people do take the friendly versus competitive freely. So someone posts that there's anyone fancy a friendly game, and almost immediately you get what you want. And I've very, very rarely ended up with a mixed result from a Hate challenge board with a stranger that way. It's all part of the don't be an arse slogan thing. Yeah.
I'm sure I break every so often.
Oh, we all are. People that have beaten me know what a sore loser I am. I'm dreadful.
I'm a better than I'm a winner, unfortunately. I try not to gloat and be too. I was like, it's so exciting now when I'm trying not to gloat.
Yep.
Right, I think on this now, I think it's time for a quick break, Dan.
Okay.
Get a bit hot up. I think we should definitely take a quick break.
I think I might need to lose the tie at this point because I'm gasping.
Cheers, Dan.
Cheers.
And we're back. Dan, you look ravishing there in that beautiful shirt.
Continuity, eh? Yes. Yes. No, I thought I'd have a quick change, something a little more casual for the second quarter.
Lovely. Let's press on. Dan, what artists inspire you?
So I had to think about this question because I don't generally get inspired by artists. I get inspired by art. Just as I tend to like music, but not the musicians, and like the books, and not the authors. I'm very iconoclastic, and when someone first told me the phrase "no gods, no masters" only a few years ago, through all the sort of anarchistic people that hate, it chimed so well with me because I very easily separate the two.
Yes,
so I tend to get visually inspired by things I've seen that may be art, but may be incidental. Rather than following particular people that do it. And I certainly don't then put those people on a pedestal and say, well, I loved that, so I have to like everything else they liked. So I was lucky enough to get really into modern art as a teenager. One of my best friends was a fine artist, and he taught me how to appreciate modern art as a teenager. And that's a very lucky thing to have happen to you, because it's so easy to be dismissive of all of the modern art movements. And now that we live in a world where all of the barriers have been broken, a lot of modern art is derivative and possibly even lazy and nonsensical. But if you can actually look at how Monet became Cézanne, became Picasso, became up to Duchamp and so on, and see the progression of how all of those ideas were dismantled and challenged, it was such an extraordinary journey, and it enables you to look at everything with completely new eyes and see what is the essential beauty in anything, from a Picasso to a sunset. So I loved artists that mucked around with your perceptions. So I was a big Bridget Riley fan, who did lots of, she was a British op art painter who did lots of mucking around with grids and things that now we would just think, that would make a nice 3D zoom background. But she was one of the ones sort of pushing those edges, and she was at a time when the last of the conceptual art barriers were being broken as well. So people were saying, does something have to have a story and a theme in order to be art? And no, it doesn't. It can be all about an emotive sensation or whatever. So yeah, I guess sort of Alexander Korda, the artist that does all the sort of big mobiles that hang in the gallery and literally are 7 tons of steel drifting in the breeze and that sort of thing, and anything that challenges your perception of how the world works and how physics works and how our mundane lives can actually have beauty buried in every little detail and on a grand scale as well. Yeah, I don't know if that answers the question directly. It's more artists don't, art does.
Yes, no, absolutely. I mean, I think it. Yeah, having studied history, I know it's a long line of horrible people doing horrible things to each other, who occasionally did some amazing things that are beneficial for everyone.
Yeah. If you can get that separation, it allows you to enjoy their work. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. This is kind of often a bit of a tangent, but I often say that when looking at I play World War II games.
Mm-hmm.
Nazis. I love the tanks, hate the politics.
Of course,
tanks themselves are like really interesting how they built them and there's technology they use to try and improve. Obviously, we don't like Nazis.
It's a problematic one, yes.
I know, but the tanks are really, really interesting. In my opinion. After mentioning Nazis, we'll move quickly on. What's your favourite genre of films?
Well, I have to say, if I'm being honest at the moment, nonsense science fiction, high energy distraction. That's what has done most of my film watching for the past 3 or 4 months. I never used to be into superhero films, but I'm in a Facebook group of a whole bunch of mature sci-fi and fantasy films fans. So whereas those fandom, the Marvel and Star Wars fandoms quite often bring with them a whole bunch of younger people who haven't fully explored all aspects of life and morality yet. This is a group of older people. There's quite a few haters in there. It's quite a woke group. So we watch these pulp action films with a more critical eye. And in particular, the 22 big Marvel films, we're watching them all in order, one every Thursday night, chatting on Facebook as we go. And it's like having a bunch of you piled up on a sofa and going, yay, there's Stan Lee, and boo, we don't like that guy, and that sort of thing. And the comments threads gets to 200 or 300 comments by the end of the film, and it's wonderfully social. And because it's chewing gum for the eyes, but we're still discussing significant elements of modern politics, race, sexuality, gender.
Yeah, if you actually consider if there's actual superheroes in the real world, the ramifications.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think there are parallels to be drawn, because arguably, if you compare the power that you and I in the street have to change to affect change compared to the power that Dominic Cummings or Donald Trump has, they're effectively superheroes, albeit not in a punching holes in cars thing. So addressing how to deal with that, or riot police, someone that we've given the authority to behave using tools that augment their powers. What's the difference between a riot policeman and Batman? Both of them think that they're reenacting a level of morality using power-assisted weapons and tools that gets into moral grey areas. So but I think particularly because of lockdown, I've avoided anything too dramatic. The world is dramatic enough at the moment. So my Kozlowskis haven't come off the shelf for quite a few years, and I think there'll probably be a phase when I get back into being a bit more cerebral and dramatic again, and at that point I'll be joining. And I just noted the British Film Institute has just launched a website called BFI Player, and they've released thousands of black and white German expressionist films and so on onto it, and that's the sort of thing I could see myself getting back into when I'm ready for it, but not right now.
I'm in a position, it's kind of reflects to what I was saying about reading, is like I have so little time. I spend a lot of time hobbying. I have podcasts on, I've been watching The Witcher, just finished watching. I really enjoyed that, but I just want something light and fluffy. I'm not choosing things that are going to make me sad at the moment.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I've got 2 hours before I've just got willing to sleep. I've got an hour and a half to 2 hours. What am I going to do? I might just watch an Adam Sandler movie because because I just don't want to. I'm tired and I just want to have something that's going to make me.
Mental health is vital, and that's a salve for it. So yeah.
What am I going to put into my brain before I go to sleep tonight? And you know what? Maybe in like 12 years' time, I'll be when William's old and he's moved out, and when he's older and he's out himself for the evening, I'll be like, right, actually now I will watch a depressing depressing movie.
My son's 21 now, and I think had it not been for the coronavirus situation, I think I probably would be getting more cerebral at the moment. But the world's quite nasty and grim enough. I don't need a Spike Lee film to add to my, my concerns about race depression and so on.
I think I'll watch Choose Your Depressing Movie. Yes. Here's a good one for you, Dan. The good question: what makes you build a force for a game?
I mean, going back to earlier, the primary thing is what's going to get me a friend to play with. That's certainly the biggest factor. And so I would never start building a super internet list Eldar D weapon span force, because I know that that's a very limited army in terms of how much fun a beer and pretzels player will have against it. So that would have no interest for me. Usually there's an element of spite to all of my armies in that I'll come up with a really creative proxy that I know will piss a lot of people off. And
perfect.
It's not 100% deliberate, but I'd be lying if there wasn't a slight element of that. So when the Primaris Marines came out, that was my opportunity to do my female Primaris army. And it's so satisfying that 2 or 3 years later now, we're now seeing lots of really talented modelers doing amazing Primaris armies, as well as doing amazing female Marine armies, rather. It's still a niche thing, but it's there.
So I was going to say, do the female heads from Age of Sigmarines, whatever those things, they fit onto the Primaris?
Yeah, they fit very well, right, to the extent that I'm sure that was a conscious design decision.
Yeah.
I use a company called Statuesque Miniatures, who do sprues of 5 heads in various different scales. They come out a little bit small, but I always quite liked the big chunky Marines with a tiny head in the middle, because to me a Marine doesn't fill their armour. They are operating an augmenting suit.
It's powered armour. It's got...
That's it. So, and Statuesque even now do female roid soldiers who are who have got studs on their shaved foreheads and that sort of thing. So clearly, very much meant for that.
I'm in the same camp as you. I think of this is that that shouldn't annoy anyone.
Yeah, and the people it was annoyed, the ones I wanted to annoy anyway. So, and then I've got my my other big armies are my Skaven counts as Tyranids, because I loved the Skaven models. I never played fantasy, and I've only dabbled in Age of Sigmar, but probably not going to get into it, because I loved the idea of having a 40k game that had non-40k models in it, because the 40k universe is supposed to be billions of planets and billions of species and races. Yeah. So I'd love to see someone do an army of crystalline spiders, and things like that. And
nice if you're listening, Games Workshop, you probably won't do this. If they released a codex or just a thing that was like alien civilizations. You can make it slightly underpowered if you want to, so no one will choose to play it as a real gaming mechanism, but just allowed you to go and get random models and just make this planet has brains with tentacles.
Well, I
powers they have and just make an army list that way for alien. What's the word they call them? Xenos, like a Xenos.
Yeah. Well, but in writing the blogs for my Skaven counts as Tyranids, and even to a certain extent my female Marines, who I decided to make one of the Lost Legions, the 11th Legion, which to me were the two Primarch sisters. And one of them was good, and one of them was naughty, and they got banished, and there we go. And that's why there's no mention of them anywhere, because all of the misogynistic Imperium that said that Marines have to be male had to deny the two sisters. So that army, I've used a lot of Xenos tech in the modelling, and then one of the really fun bit for a proxy army for me is coming up with the fluff and crunch for it, because I accept that in order to play a balanced game, I need to use one of the existing codicy. So when I built my Skaven I had to first of all decide, right, how does Skaven play? They're hordes and hordes of timid rats that are spineless and cowardly, unless they've got a really powerful, charismatic leader who uses magic and then drowns the enemy in bodies of cheap disposable troops. And quite a few people had done Imperial Guard, as a Skaven counts as Imperial Guard, but to me, Skaven don't have all of these amazing tanks and so on. And then I saw Tyranids, and I thought, there we go, you've got thousands of screaming gribblies hoarding across the field that, if they don't have a leader near them, panic and run away. And that was so I then thought, okay, so Tyranids fire bugs. Basically, all of their guns are shooting maggots or shooting acid or shooting sentient burrowing creatures. So I then converted that to being blasts of Skaven warpstone magic. So then I had to think, okay, what are the big cannons going to look like? They're going to need to look like big chunks of warpstone with emanating green smoke and so on. And then I had to make it so that my opponent can look at the whole table and go, those are the little guys that aren't scary, or that's the big one I've got. So thinking about how your opponent perceives your proxying. And I think that's the best way. If someone wanted to do crystalline spiders as an army, you need to think about how does your spider army play, and then what codex reflects that best. Pick that codex, and then each unit that you want in your spider army, how does it match up to being a Space Marine or a Warp Spider or a Carnifex?
I definitely agree. I mean, you can't do WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get, because obviously they're going to be different models. But I think it's important. There's a simple respect for your opponent.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's very obvious what each model is. I mean, to take it to another extent, I've known people in tournaments before they've got Blood Angels, and there's 3 Rhinos, and one of them is a Death Company. It's Death Company, isn't it? Rhino. But they haven't put the Death Company in the Death Company Rhino. They're putting another. And to me, that's like, no, that's cheating.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Rhino. Otherwise, you're deliberately misleading your opponent.
Yeah.
So I think it should be really, really clear at a glance at the table what everything is. And if you can do that, that's much better.
Well, with my Skavenids, I actually had a laminated sheet with a picture of my unit a picture of the corresponding Tyranid unit, and a few words on storm vermin, gene stealers, very scary assault unit, no guns.
Yeah.
This. And at any point, and because I also don't play competitively, if someone says, right, okay, my lone chaplain is going to charge that not particularly scary looking squad of 10 thingies, and I go, mate, they're just going to eat, your chaplain's going to die. Don't do that. And that's the way I like to play. I like to play a conversational game where you don't let your opponent make a stupid mistake because they didn't know your army. The couple of times I've run into monster units that I had no idea what they were, and what's the new Ogrin things, the Imperial Guard Frankenstein creatures that have got shields and big guns, but Bullgrins, I think they are. Yeah, I'd never heard of them before, and 10 of them came down the middle of the table and basically ate my whole army, and it wasn't a particularly fun game. I can't remember who it was. It was a lovely chap, someone I have played against and thoroughly enjoy playing, but that game was just like watching them go into the mincer. It was a.
We pack this up and start again.
Yeah.
I've played against someone. They've gone. You look at the. You're like, well, congratulations, you've got a really good army there. We're going to kill me. So we'll just won the first game.
Yes. Shake hands. Have beer.
Let's have a bit, and let's actually have another. Let's actually have a. Let's not bother playing that one though. You've won. And let's have a proper game where it's actually going to be, 50-50. I completely forgot what question I asked you.
That was what makes you build a force. Yeah. So winding people up, making people laugh, and making people think would probably be my answer.
Something different.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Cool. Last question of section 2. Dan, what's your next army / project? What's the next thing you're going to be working on, do you think?
Absolutely 9th edition. My female Marines are really looking forward to their reinforcements. The new models look great. I'm really excited to have motorbikes again. They will probably be converted to hover bikes because my 11th Legion army have quite a lot of hover stuff.
Yep.
And the ground clearance issue on those particular models is a bit silly. So they're going to have some hover plates just for the hell of it. I probably won't have any interest in the characters and the guys with shields because they're sculpted to be very high Gothic grimdark, and I've kept my Primaris much more elegant and non-iconic.
I think they said actually that was a design choice. The first set of Primaris are they're straight off the production line, at the door, haven't much bling on them. And this is a bit further down the line where they've been fighting for a while, a few years later, and they've built some honours up, and that's why dead guy on their shield.
Yes, I'm really not keen on gruesomeness. Not a single model in my whole army has a drop of blood on them. My models don't fight; they play wide games. Yeah. And when one of my models gets shot, they walk off the battlefield dejectedly and go to the bar, which explains how they can be there the following week. I do not do gruesome. I don't do celebration of it. I mean, I play Dark Eldar, but it's using the Dark Eldar rule set. I don't have them as psychotic BDSM blood-crazed sadists. They are a bunch of humans with hover ships and Nerf darts, and they all smile and they all shake hands after the battle.
So, why not? That's what we do.
Absolutely.
The battle. The 9th looks very interesting. I think I'm not so keen on the Necron stuff. But
I'm also very excited about that. I'm looking forward to starting my Necron army. So.
I've got a Necron, just a Necron kill team. I scratch built some models using. Thanks, James. Mm-hmm. And I think because I'm not playing 40k at the moment, I don't think I'm going to play 9th. But I've really enjoyed kill team. But it does seem like you can do smaller battles. I think there was a release, and that if there's a chance to do a skirmish level, because I don't want to collect a whole army, but if I can do 10-20 models.
Well, I'm a huge fan of the Heralds of Ruin, what used to be called Kill Team game. Heralds of Ruin is a a very successful gaming company, gaming group like Hates, set up in Liverpool somewhere, I think. Hi to Ash Gavin. And many years ago, they developed a addendum set of rules to add to existing 40k. So you still need 40k rules, you still need your codex to play it, but it basically is a 250 point skirmish game, so 10 to 20 models. And each model, you use the full 40k rule set, except each model can move individually, and there's, I think, it's a 10-page rule book that just adds a whole load of extra little bits and pieces, and it makes amazingly cinematic skirmish games, much more involved and complex than the new Games Workshop Kill Team game. And also because the new Kill Team game has different mechanics to 40k, if you try playing both, you have to remember which game you're playing as to how you do things. Whereas with the Heralds of Ruin, you're playing the same game. So anyone that wants to get into 40k can start with Heralds of Ruin, and anyone who's already got loads of 40k can play a Heralds of Ruin game as well. And that's a really good way of doing it. And I've got a couple of little squads for armies that I don't collect, purely for playing Heralds of Ruin. So,
I mean, that's what I've just bought. I've got a few Space Wolves, I've got a few Necrons, I've got a few Gene Stealer Cultists, a few Death Guard. I'm not planning to flesh them out into, especially the Necrons, flesh them out into bigger armies.
There's bits of flesh here and there, but it's a bit gruesome.
It's hanging off them.
Yeah.
But it's just nice to know that I can still dip my toe into, because I'm not playing 40k at the moment, but I have played 40k for 30 years or something ridiculous. So it's nice that I still know the law. I still love the work.
When the lockdown is over, I challenge you to a game of Heralds of Ruin, because as I say, you can use it's 40k but with a different army list.
We're gonna have to play Burrows and Badgers as well, so
very much looking forward to that.
Right, and on that bombshell, I think we'll take another break and we'll come back.
Okay.
See you in a bit, guys.